BigDaddyLinux is sponsored by UpCloud, which can provide you with superior cloud hosting and cloud infrastructure with unrivaled performance with their Max IOPS technology. Sign up using the promo code BigDaddyLinux, which gives you $25 worth of credit along with a 7-day free trial to see for yourself the UpCloud difference. And welcome to another Biddle on Saturday, July 13th. How's everybody doing?
Doing well.
Right.
I'm my normal self.
We know, Joshua. We know.
That's okay.
All right. Can we get a confirmation that we're sounding good and we're all ready to go?
Sounds good.
Okay. Dig it. All right. This week, we decided we were going to try Debian 10 Buster. So, anybody want to go first, or shall we just pick Zeb to go first?
Zeb.
Yeah.
I'm good as Zeb.
Zeb.
Well, apparently I had a rant on the last show,
You
so
did.
I'm going to go later.
All right. Okay.
I volunteer to go first. I'll be the one that gets in the firing line.
Do it, Chris. Do it.
Okay. Well, it was kind of nice being back onto the normal GUI type of install. Although I still do like Arch, and I'm going to try installing Arch on another computer. But that was last week. This week we're doing Debian. Sorry, I learned it as Debian. That's what I'm going to say probably till the end of the time. Anyway, it returned to form where I had to go in with a live copy of Fedora and do an fdisk on the drive to set the boot record, set the boot flag. But once I did that, it booted right in. Had a little bit of trouble with some network drivers, but figured that out. So it gave me a little bit of a challenge rather than just saying, okay, we got a desktop, now what? But once I got that installed and set up, everything was smooth as far as my normal workflow. But I don't see any reason why I should change over to Debian as a daily driver. I am running a version of Debian on my Pi 3. So, I mean, I'm dealing with that. And there's a couple idiosyncrasies that once I figured out what was going on, it was easy to fix. Got that taken care of. And again, it had to do with networking. But anyhow, so overall, it's I don't see any reason why it would cause me to change distributions, but it is a distribution that is stable, and if I had to use it, I wouldn't have any problems with it, and it seems to be working well.
Dig it. Very nice. We're going to switch back up to Dan. What's happening, Dan?
Hey, not much. I like Debian. Had a good time. I put LXQt on my laptop, which probably surprises no one. And it ran really well. It was almost as good as Ubuntu.
Almost.
Yeah, so there's a couple little things that they do a little different over there. For one thing, they use the XFCE window manager instead of OpenBox, which is it's okay, I guess.
Right.
Just different. And obviously, you know, there's a whole lot of computers out there that are not bleeding edge for sure, and people are running them, surfing the web, all that good stuff. And I had no problems with that on my older laptop. So the issue is with a lot of people, Debian is not new enough for the newer machines. You know, the newer drivers are not there and whatnot. But really, I'd have to say that that's probably a smaller percentage of the machines that are running out there. So for your average web surfing, emailing, all that stuff, you probably get by just fine with running something stable like this. You won't have to touch it again. It'll just kind of run. which is great. So I had a good time with it on my older hardware.
Is it a different version of LXQt than Ubuntu?
Nope, it's the same actually, same version. One of the lead people in the LXQt project is a Debian packager developer. So the experience is very good, and they keep on top of it pretty well. So you'll have a good time there, I think.
Very nice. No issues installing, right?
No. I actually did the net install because it's a little smaller, and you can kind of pick through the things you want, and it goes pretty quick. It wasn't too bad, even though I was pulling it down over the net. It probably only took it was a little longer than a regular install, but probably less than a half an hour. So it went well for me. It's just a lot of click next, put
Right.
your name in, that sort of stuff. Seemed good.
And I'm sorry, I don't know if you said or not, the your hardware, was it Nvidia, AMD?
No, it's an Intel laptop. It's an older laptop.
Okay.
It's an early generation i5.
Very nice. I'm waiting to hear if there are a lot of issues with the non-free or with the Nvidia things. So, Peter, how are you, sir? Hold on, you are muted, sir. If I can find your name.
That was your fault. You muted me.
I did mute everybody actually, so we could have.
I do it manually with my own microphone. So there you go. So I installed Debian 10 last week, and normally over the years I've had problems installing Debian, but Debian 10 was like a dream. I went to the Debian website. I actually didn't know about free and non-free. I downloaded the official one, which is all free software. That actually installed fine on my Alienware laptop. Then I went to the Debian wiki and installed. I've got notes here. I installed my Nvidia Legacy 340-102 driver, and also Broadcom module for the Wi-Fi, both from the wiki. And after all the talk of the Arch wiki I heard from last week, I was scared to go to the wiki, but the Debian one worked well. So, why are you laughing?
Because of the Arch wiki.
Okay.
We weren't trying to bash the Arch wiki.
I'm giving my serious support here.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying the Debian wiki was a joy to use. I'm no expert, but through that wiki, I was able to install the Nvidia driver and the Broadcom driver. No problem at all.
Can I ask you, Peter, because I didn't go to the wiki. Can I ask how the wiki said to install the Nvidia drivers?
I just follow the commands. I don't know what you mean by that.
Well, I mean, what process was it? Is it enabling a PPA? Is it?
Oh, I really can't remember.
Okay.
It was a whole week ago, and I've had a whole bunch of stuff since then. I've had a whole new kitchen floor and everything since then.
Yep. Dig it.
So, but I installed from the ISO. Asked me which desktop. I was already connected to the internet, so it gave me a whole bunch of options. I installed Budgie, Mate, and XCFC. The only thing was, and I didn't go any further, when I installed the Nvidia driver, it broke Budgie. But the other two work well. And that's really my report.
You're muted, Zeb.
That's your fault because you muted me at the beginning.
I did. I muted everybody.
I know. So, Peter, do you think you could ever use that as a daily driver if you spent time configuring it and getting it the way you wanted?
If I had to, it was the only distro on the entire planet, yes.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks very much indeed for that. So, Joshua, keeping it on point, how did your Debian go?
Hello. My Debian went well. Debian is still Debian. It always asks for everything, so you don't overlook something. I still think that's great. But I've always had the impression there's no point in keeping this on a real operating system. It's kind of just there as a base, kind of like Arch. So, for example, some stuff kind of is, I'm just going to say, can be a little outdated. For example, Cinnamon is 3.8.8. That's the version. But the thing is, Debian is always that perfect base with apt, which is fast, and depackage. I think it's all beautiful and great. And because of Ubuntu deriving it, it's now became such a big thing. And I think that, we should still admire it. And also, I found this out. I have a little conclusion to make without taking too long. So when we tested Ubuntu 19.4, if anybody did, then we saw that it was a lot more faster and memory efficient. But actually, so was Debian a little. So that might be, partially, it might be an effect from Debian that Ubuntu is very fast. I just think that Debian is a great base, but I wouldn't live with it. So, yeah, I enjoyed Debian. I'm going to go test something else. Bye, guys.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks very much indeed for that report. Dark One, what hideous hardware did you put it on this time? And you're muted before you start answering.
Really, Zed? What hideous hardware? Come on. Just because I put it on the most oddball things does not mean a single thing, my friend. Actually, I put this on the typical test machine I have. I put this on the Sony Vaio Duo that I have. That is the test bed for any distro I try because it's an all Intel system. I did the non-free KDE version. It's Debian with KDE. Like the install was quick and painless. Installer was kind of reminiscent of a unrefined Ubiquity installer to me. Other than that, connected to the network fine from within the installers. OpenSUSE. Really, I have no complaints. My biggest thing is trying to figure out how is this any different than any other Debian spin or Ubuntu base that I've used. It's stable, I'll give it that, but so is an LTS from Ubuntu. So for those that want, like if I was putting it on a test, like the testing repos, that'd be fine. But I don't think it's the distro is meant for my particular use case. But for those that want stability and rock solid stuff, totally get why people want it.
Cool. So just a quick question: the difference between the non-free and the free ISO, is it simply a case of sources.list has free written in it already?
From my understanding, it's going to include certain binary blobs that you're not going to normally get. So like this is an all Intel system, but it also recognized the Anatheros gigabit Ethernet that's in it, which usually is not recognized
by anything.
Exactly. Especially if you use like a free Libre distro like Triskel or any of the other ones that fall into that line, and it actually works. So
cool.
That's really the biggest difference. That and the 3.2 gig download, a lot of redundant stuff I didn't need on KDE, but other than that, it's good for what it is.
Excellent. So, Tony, on to your good self. How did you get on with, Debian? Really? Debian. Let me just get this cleared up. It was Ian Murdoch had a girlfriend called Debbie, so he called it Debian.
Where's Thomas when you need him?
Yeah, where's Thomas?
I will channel him. Debian.
So, yeah, Tony, how did you get on, my friend?
I ran it on a pen drive. That was all right. I tried to install it. After 3 aborted attempts of getting just a black screen and a flashing cursor, I did what you would have done. I just said, next.
Good man. It's catching.
What was the problem, Tony, with that? What didn't you like about it?
The black screen was kind of boring.
But the black screen is there to help you learn, sir.
Yeah, the flashing cursor wasn't telling me anything, though. So that really didn't help a lot.
Blue flag on the wasn't set to the blue partitioning. Probably it.
Us newbies, if you get a black flashing, no, you don't get a black flashing screen. Sorry, you get a black screen and a flashing cursor, or the other way around even. It's just a case of next.
Right. Okay, Barbara, did you get to try Debian?
Actually, yes, I did. Now, on the Telegram group, somebody was asking me what my impression was if I had actually installed it. And I actually did. And I said I wasn't going to be a spoiler, so I wouldn't tell them what I did. I did install it on a ThinkPad T420 and installed perfectly. Did not like the network card. As long as I had my Ethernet cable plugged in, it was fine. It did not see the network card no matter what. And I was really surprised because I've never had that problem with that. That's an all Intel system, that one. And I figured it would work really well. And I was very surprised. I mean, everything I did the Mate version, of course, and that seemed to work out really well as long as I had my network cable in, as long as I had the Ethernet cable. And I was just not going to sit there and spend forever trying to figure out why the Wi-Fi wasn't working. So other than that, I actually, it was fine. It was stable. It did what it was supposed to. It's, it's nothing, there's obviously nothing bleeding edge on it. That's for sure. But like what other people said, if they wanted something stable, that's that's perfectly fine. And the Mate version worked well. Didn't have like all the themes. That was the thing that I had noticed, unless that was just me. I don't know.
You didn't notice the version of it, did you? Like if it was the same one in Ubuntu Mate?
I think it's an earlier one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember.
Well, I would think that the bits that make it Ubuntu Mate wouldn't be in the Debian version, like the software boutique and stuff like that.
Right. Oh, I didn't expect any of that in there. But it didn't have you didn't have the choice of different themes, different desktops. Like you didn't have Mutiny, you didn't have any of that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I was wondering, because even in the previous version of Mate, you had those. Cool. So, but other than that, I don't see anything wrong with it, except that if you wanted bleeding edge, it's definitely not the one to run, but it is stable and it worked well and it booted right up very quickly.
And can you remember, did you get the ordinary ISO or the non-free one?
I think I got I just don't, I think I just got the regular one.
The regular one, yeah.
And that would probably explain why it didn't have, let me see. I think I did. I didn't realize at the time when I downloaded it that I was just looking at different desktops. I didn't realize there was free versus non-free. And the non-free then probably would have had the network card driver.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I downloaded the regular ISO, and I have an Nvidia system, so I wanted to see how it would work. And I got some help from my man Adam in Telegram about how to install the Nvidia drivers, which was basically just enabling the non-free and the contrib repositories, and then was able to install it with one command, and it worked pretty well. So Big Pod, sir.
Yeah, I had a bunch of problems with Debian. First of all, when I installed it, it installed very well. I installed the net install with non-free drivers, so my GPU worked great. I have 1050 Ti mobile, which doesn't work anywhere on the first try. It worked in Debian, which was great. I was surprised. But when I got in, wireless card wasn't working, and it is a Realtek one with RTL 882020B module, which works everywhere on Arch, Ubuntu, but it didn't work in Debian. But while looking on the internet, just found out it has been just started in 5.2 kernel, in the 5.2 kernel. So I guess everyone else adds it in automatically or has the kernel module on standby for those who need it. So I guess that will be resolved. Otherwise, works great. VirtualBox isn't in repos, even in backports, so you had to get it from Oracle and directly from Oracle's repository. And because I don't have the repository for Buster yet, you have to go and get Bionic repository from Ubuntu. So, yeah. Otherwise, works great. No problems. Installed KDE, so that was an experience for me. I don't like KDE.
Then
Plasma.
why did you install KDE if you don't like KDE?
Wanted to install it so I could maybe get it more like it, or at least stand it. And yeah, now I can stand it. Even though first thing I need to do is disable that thing called single click.
Oh my god!
Here
we go.
Which is out of this world. How I don't like it. But
do you remember the version number of Plasma on Debian?
No. But now, since I disabled single click, it worked. KDE worked great. I can stand it. That's about it. Now on to the next challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I think the version was 5.14.5, something like that.
Correct.
All right. Colin, how are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you.
Was Debian very well?
Yeah, I've always sort of had this thing about Debian, to be honest. I've sort of liked it for many years, but sort of couldn't get it going properly. But until I think you got to use it a bit to sort of understand it, I believe. But I installed it on the laptop. I used the live installer. Just wanted to check that out, see how that went. And you put in the main and the contrib, the contrib and the non-free. Installed all the codecs, DVDs, play, rip some music. That all worked because my laptop has the DVD player and all that. So I thought I'd check all that stuff out, and that all works fine. So I'm just making some videos on all the different installers at the moment, and that's interesting because making videos, you do learn a fair bit. So I might learn something out of that.
Keep it up, Colin. I like your videos. Keep them up.
Thanks, mate. But I think I could run Debian full time. The only big mistake I made, Rocco, during the week was trying to get Optimus working on Debian. And that took over my life.
Wow. See, you should have came to the Telegram group. I'm sure somebody could have helped you.
I actually found someone in chat. Someone in chat today. I found his video, which was Dorian / and his video was interesting. How he got Optimus working, but that was with Bumblebee. So I think you install Bumblebee and the Bumblebee Nvidia and all that, and then you run a command called OptiRun, and he did show you how you can get that going in Steam as well. So you set it within the game, so it automatically runs OptiRun. So that was an interesting video, and I did get it running after watching Dorian's video. So anyone,
thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anyone got Optimus, go check out Dorian, because that was probably, I don't know if there's any other way to get Optimus running in Debian, to be honest, besides what Dorian did. So yeah, that was a challenge and a half. I don't know how many installs I did just to go back to scratch and start again. Because if you follow the Debian wiki and the Arch wiki, it just takes you down a rabbit hole of scripts and commands, and doing this and that, and just nothing works. It's like an endless dead end hitting your head against a brick wall most of the time.
Well,
that was my experience.
It's always nice when you find that video that helps you out, man. I just posted a link to Dorian's YouTube in the YouTube chat if you guys want to go check it out.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, that was a good video, that one. So, yeah, that was the only thing. I might actually even try Debian on my Intel NUC, which is just Intel. There's no issues there. And I might even just put it on SID and run SID and keep in touch with the latest GNOME, because they're making a few reasonable changes lately. So that's interesting to keep up with. So I might try that. But that's my experience for the week, Rocco.
Very
Bit
nice.
of fun.
Cool. Thanks very much. James, you're up next.
Hey guys, what's up? So my experience with Debian was
there was a big sigh there, James.
It was pretty. Wow. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
So anyhow, Debian was. I like the installer actually. I thought it was actually pretty well thought out. It kind of reminds me of a mix between Ubiquity and Anaconda from, say, Fedora, right, or Red Hat or CentOS, something like that, kind of mixed together. What's interesting about it is, you set up your root password and then your user password, etc. And I chose the KDE version. Once I finished the installation and did the first boot, well, I couldn't see anything. It wasn't a blank screen. KDE did come up, or Plasma came up, but there was problems. It was like a rainbow color. I don't know how to describe it. It was just blocks of rainbow everywhere. So I couldn't see the font and attempted to log in. That failed. So then I rebooted again, thinking, well, maybe I missed something. I don't know. So rebooted again and tried to log in as root. It let me in, but then when I logged in, pulled up console, it had my sudo username in the console instead of root, which is odd. I don't know how that happened. Attempted to run apt update as root. Root wasn't in the sudoers file. Now this isn't me. I do this all day long. It's not me. I didn't do something weird. It was just something went awry with the installation process, and root wasn't in the sudoers file. I thought that was the strangest thing. So that's when I said, you know what? Next, I'm done. I don't feel like dealing with it any further. Debian to me is like something from, I don't know, 5 years ago. The packages are old. Yeah, Cubicle Nate's right. 10 years ago is probably accurate. So the packages are old. I'd rather just run Ubuntu, LTS Ubuntu, if I'm going to run it on a server, and I do that all the time. I think that's a better choice. It's easier. You can get done with your installations much faster. And if you're going to choose another distribution for your desktop, it should be Solus.
Right? Well, there's a use case for Debian, just like there's a use case for all of the distros, but it's obviously not for everybody.
Right, and you might say, well, it's probably good for server, but in the same, I don't know that I would agree with that, considering that I use servers all day at work, and I've never seen a situation where root wasn't in the sudoers. I've never seen something like that. That is really odd. I don't know what's going on with that. So that's
because you don't run sudo as root. You don't need to. You just type the command.
Right, Dorian. I know. I'm running just apt update, right, and it throws out this error. I don't know what's up with that. That's really strange to me. Yes. So
did you try and reinstall it at all, just in case you had one of those funny installs that happen from time to time?
You know what? I didn't. I was just, I thought, I don't think this is going to work for me. I'm just going to move on. I got other things going on in my life, so I just moved on.
All right. Well, thanks very much indeed for that. Dave, you're up.
Unlike Nate saying 10 years old, honestly, when I was first trying to get it to run on my system, I felt like I was dealing with Windows 98. I tried to get it off of a USB stick. I tried to get the net install off of a CD, and I kept getting this little file missing, MMX64, blah, blah, blah. And I finally realized that I had to go into the boot options and choose the non-UEFI version to even get it to run. And all my systems have UEFI, so having to load a non-UEFI system just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But okay, I got it up and running. Tried to do, went straight to the graphical installer version in the grub file, and it ran fine right up until it went to configuring the network. It's all IPv4, configured that, went to IPv6, said it was configuring that, and froze. So I killed that and went back in again in the live session. Then got it to install, went to the installer. Installer is great, next, but I set it up in my partitions, FAT32 partition, mounted under boot, an ext4 partition for the root. I don't understand why they don't have XFS as a choice in the installer, because that's my file system of choice, and a swap, and told it to load the bootloader onto the boot partition, and got that nice black screen with the blinky cursor. So it took me about 5 minutes of thinking before I realized, well, I couldn't use a UEFI off of the USB stick, so I went back in, redid the install, told it to install the bootloader into the master boot record of the disk instead of the boot partition. Lo and behold, it started right up. It went into KDE, was fine. It was a little strange because I pulled up my bash script that I use to do all my folder linking and disk mounting and whatnot, and the bash in Debian didn't like it. It kept throwing errors for something that never errored anywhere else in any other distro. So I went through it line by line, adding the stuff in by hand into console. Debian doesn't have wget by default, so I had to install that, which I found very strange. Adding the contribute, the non-free, and even the Buster backports worked fine in the Etsy apt sources list. NVIDIA drivers loaded right in, no problem. It didn't install NVIDIA Xconfig, even though you really should run that before running NVIDIA settings. It did say in the wiki that you really don't need it, but I like to have certain specific settings in my NVIDIA settings, so I did need it. Let's see. I guess mostly it's just, it's a good solid system. I have no desire to use it because it made me realize how utterly spoiled I have become with the modern distros and how easily they install all the little bits and doodads that make the initial setup 1,000 times easier. Even the Arch systems that I use, actually, the only reason they're easy is because I have the scripts that just dump everything in by normal. But if I had the time to go through and set it up, other than it not being a rolling release, I could deal with it fine. I just, at this point, I'm really not willing to put in that much time. So good system, but not for me.
I would agree, Dave, that just to echo your point, that it is a really good system, but you get so spoiled with having things already set up basically for you to run and install programs. I ran into an issue with Google Play Music desktop player where I could not, I had to install dependencies to get it installed to begin with, but then there were libraries that were not installed that would not allow it to run. I ran out of time during the week to figure out which one it was or to install it. But yeah, we get spoiled that these things just normally work right out of the box. So.
The other thing I found interesting was when I installed the NVIDIA drivers, it recommended NVIDIA drivers or NVIDIA TAC drivers, TAC Libs, TAC i386, and it recommended, the apt recommended that. And it suggested a couple other programs. And so I said, no, don't install. Went up, copied the sudo apt install NVIDIA drivers, added the recommends and the suggesteds, and it didn't have any of them. It said, there's no installation candidate for any of these. I'm like, then why did you recommend them? If there's nowhere to get them, why are you recommending and suggesting them to me? So, yeah, that was an issue I had with their repositories, but.
Yep. Sounds like you had a good time.
Woohoo! Next.
So you won't be saying, by the way, I use Debian anytime soon.
Not unless it's the Ubuntu derivative and the peppermint derivative of that.
Cool. That's what I like to hear. Joe, you're up. How was your Debian experience? Of course, you mentioned on the earlier show that you'd only just installed it this evening. So have you had a time to play with it?
Not much since we were on, but I can walk through what I have done with it. And I wish I had a beer to be like, hand it over to Dave because he sounds like he needs one. Oh, there you go. Anyway, I installed the cinnamon flavor because, again, like I mentioned earlier today, was to compare because I run mint cinnamon and to see what the differences may or may not be. There's certain things I like to do to tweak out of the box. First of all, the install, for me went very easy. Didn't seem to have any real problems. I did mention earlier today too that this is not something that you offer to anybody that's unfamiliar with Linux at all, because it would probably confuse them. I do think it's polished. I do think it's snappy. What I don't like, for me, I've gotten so used to what I'm on right now, is you can't even do simple tweaks on this thing. Like with Mint, there's some of the options, like if you right click and you want to adjust where the icons sit on the desktop and things like that. I mean, that to me, it doesn't sound like anything that's a big deal, but it's important to me. Menu limitations on here, I noticed, again, with the time I had to mess with it today. I like that I could put things into my favorites, take things out of my favorites that maybe I won't use. Like in this one, I believe it's got Pigeon or something in there. I don't really use that. I'd like to maybe put my preferred internet in there, or same thing with software. Like I go up in the Mint and there's a software center there. I'm not real familiar with this, so I'm going to sound like a complete noob, but I don't see anything that's like a software center. It's like it's all that has to be all manually installed. Is that basically?
It has Synaptic.
Pardon me?
It has Synaptic Package Manager.
Right, but I mean, a lot of times it's nice you want to go up to the software center and just grab something simple or whatever in that. Where I usually do use Synaptic, but sometimes I get in the habit of going up there real quick. And it's just I noticed that was.
What desktop did you install?
That's what I was
looking at.
Oh.
Ah, well, that'll explain it. Because if you'd put GNOME on there, there'd have been a GNOME software center. If you'd have put KDE on there, it'd have been that other thing. Yeah, Discover.
Yeah.
Sudo apt install. It's on all the desktops.
Yeah, and honestly, I do a lot in the terminal, but that's one thing that I probably should get a little bit more in the habit. I am doing it more with specific programs that I'm concerned, and I do use Flatpaks on here. I do think what software they've included isn't bad. It seems like it's got a fairly nice selection of software on there out of the box. The terminal seemed really fast, for what little bit I did for updating and upgrading and whatever. And it was like snap, boom, boom, quick. I didn't care for the appearance of it, but again, that's something I could change. And it's just, like I said, a lot of the basic tweaks that I'm used to doing was different. But that's about as far as I got on it today. I think it's, for what it is, it's a nice system. I know that Joshua mentioned earlier about the Cinnamon being 3.8.8. You know, to me, you want to have newer stuff when you can have it, but even Mint is a little bit behind. I don't know if it's behind as this, but in some ways. But the reality of it is that's not always necessarily a bad thing if there's a stability. You know, if you've got a nice stable distro that you're not going to have any real issues with or whatever, and it runs rock solid. Yeah, I mean, you know, in today's world of rolling releases, you always expect to have something that's, you know, cutting edge or whatever. But I don't think it's a bad distro. Is it for me? No, it's not something I would leave on a machine and run all the time. You know, I like you guys said earlier too. We've kind of gotten spoiled with, you know, you click and you do a couple of clicks and then you let the installer go, and then you have whatever things you need there because it's kind of like done out of the box for you. So, but then again, that's why I'm not an Arch person either. I mean, it's just, you know, it's whatever floats different people's boats, but that's it.
Yep, it definitely is not for everybody, but there's a lot of people that run Debian and love it. So,
yeah.
Tyler, sir, how are you?
A little bit hot, but I'm doing all right.
Yeah, I get it.
So, I threw Debian on the ThinkPad, I think last Sunday. Just the standard net install ISO, nothing fancy. Installed it. I went with GNOME because I was curious to see how ready it was with Wayland on Debian, since they chose to go with Wayland as default.
That was peculiar. I didn't expect that.
Yeah. So it worked. I mean, the ThinkPad has Intel graphics, so why wouldn't it work? I didn't really notice any issues with it being Wayland. I mean, outside of that, it's Debian. It works. It's older packages. So, for example, I know Debian likes to stick with the ESR on their stable image. So, what I ended up doing is I added the SID repo and then made the stable repo the priority, so it only install from SID if I told it to. For example, I installed the latest version of Firefox from the SID repos. I also added I also installed and added FlatHub, so I could grab stuff like Discord from FlatHub. That was pretty easy. It integrated into GNOME software flawlessly.
So when you do that, Tyler, how do you run the command? Like, what do you add to the command to install something if you want to install it from SID?
Ooh, I think it's something like apt install -t and then the package. But you have to add the repo to the sources.list and then add something to the apt config to say, hey, the Buster repo is still the priority. I don't want to update the entire system to SID. Just
that might be bad. That might be bad.
Yeah. But like I said, otherwise, it's Debian. It worked. I pretty much used it as my primary machine for the most part because I just had Netflix up on my desktop watching Stranger Things after work all week long. So,
was there anything you found that you couldn't do because of older packages?
Not really. I mean, it's Buster just came out. The older version of GNOME, there were some things in 3.32 which are nicer, such as the updated GNOME terminal, but it's a terminal. I don't really care. And currently, I am actually installing Debian on this old netbook, which has been featured on here before, because Debian still supports 32-bit. So I'm going to install it on this netbook and run the netbook with some speakers downstairs for listening to podcasts.
Very nice.
So
see, there are use cases for Debian.
32-bit use cases.
Right. All right, Dorian, welcome to Biddle.
Thank you very much.
So how was your experience with Debian 10?
Well, I installed it in a VM. I've installed previous versions before. And I put it in a VM because I've basically been using Buster for almost a year on Q4 OS. And Zeb is using that now as well, I believe, Centaurus. Yeah. So I've had the packages up until now, and now it's kind of frozen, as Debian does. And you're not going to get updates anymore prior to this, it was sort of like running a rolling release. So I'm waiting for the next Q4S to come out on the next Debian version, and then I'll just roll with that. But it was good. The installer, the Debian installer, like people said, is maybe not the nicest, but if you've installed Linux before, it's not that bad at all. And also, if you're running a live version, it's different because I loaded the Cinnamon one in mine, and you get the Calamares installer. So it's a little better than using the Debian installer.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But other than that, you've got all your Debian software, and like I said, it's all going to stop updating now, other than security. So I'll just wait for the next Q4S to come out and go with that, because I use that as one of my main machines.
And what environment do you run, Cinnamon?
Plasma.
Plasma.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very nice.
And I'm also always on the lookout for distros that can do the Nvidia Optimus, like Colin.
Can you explain what you did with that?
Just go watch the video.
Okay. All right. Never mind.
It's a thing. But anyways, Ubuntu, it doesn't work on Ubuntu, even though it's based on Debian. I don't know why. It stopped working after 16.04. I don't know what they changed. I got frustrated and kind of gave up on it. But Debian and other Debian-based distros like Q4OS, it does work.
All right. Kevin.
Hey, how's it going?
What's happening, brother? How's CyberPower PC doing, huh? Never mind.
I'm not going to get into all that. But
yeah, I got into a rant on the other video. So, how's Debian 10? Did you try it?
I did not try Debian this week, but it's Debian. I assume it still works as it has since the Jurassic era.
Dig it?
Certainly does. Adam, welcome.
Hey.
And did you try Debian?
I did. It's boring. It's very boring.
Wow.
That is something you don't hear every day.
Yeah, it's just Linux, right? It's like if you could like distill all the fun out of Linux, you get Debian. Like really.
That's why I said it's Debian.
Yeah, it's like there's nothing like I don't know. There's nothing really to say about it. Everybody's had stuff to say, but like I don't know. I got like the old Nvidia driver. I guess I would have liked a newer Nvidia driver, but I mean the GNOME was okay. At least it was 330, so I had some performance tweaks. But overall, man, I was just kind of let down. I mean, it'll be with us for another 20 years until Debian 11, but and then maybe we'll get GNOME 3.32. So
it's so solid it doesn't even hurt.
Yeah.
So Adam, what version of the Nvidia drivers did you get?
418.
It's a darn sight better than 394, which you would have got on stretch.
Yeah. I don't even know if my 1080 Ti would have worked on stretch. Now that I think about it, but it was. I don't know. It's a lackluster.
Okay, moving swiftly on. Steve, how you doing?
Hello, gentlemen.
Now that's a screensaver. That's the one to use.
I like the one before that one. Just saying.
It's so.
Oh, that thing. Oh. I installed. I just went with Debian with Mate. I just went with the basic install. I didn't do the net installer. Calamares, I think, is an awesome installer. I installed Debian, real quickly. I was actually talking to Adam and Kevin in Discord while I was installing it. But it didn't see my Wi-Fi card. I had it hooked up to the Ethernet. I was kind of surprised. Well, I guess I shouldn't have been with Debian. It was almost an XFCE like Mate light gray. It just didn't look good type thing. I changed that. I didn't get a chance to play with it a whole lot, but it was Debian trying to figure out the Wi-Fi card was a big thing, but I didn't have time much during the week to play with it, so it sits on my laptop doing nothing.
All right. Well, thank you very much indeed. So we've seen Cubicle Nate this evening giggling along and laughing along a lot of statements. So come on, Nate, give us your take on Debian.
All right, so Debian is something I've used over the years on and off, more off than on, but nonetheless. There's a lot of things I like about it, some things I don't. I can't argue with any of the statements really that were made. It installed well for me. I don't mind the installer. I think it works great. A lot of extra clicks, not a big deal. But here's what I like about Debian. It's being described as being boring, but I don't think that's the right description. I'm sorry, Adam, not to stir the pot. I think you're wrong. I think it's a sterile experience. It's not even boring. It's like going to a hospital. Linux as a hospital. It's very clean.
Martian regolith.
I love
yes.
So this is like a white room.
Basically. So but there's no cruft in it. I feel like it's clean with no cruft. It's and that has its merits. Discover worked quite well. In fact, it worked so well I almost fell out of my chair. It was amazing how well Discover works. So whatever they're doing in Debian for Discover, they need to push that to all the other distributions.
I mean,
not that I should.
So Discover's been working fine for me on a Kubuntu for the last 2 releases.
Not for me.
Yeah, it's maybe a little dubious. The package selection I thought on Debian is pretty robust. I could install Telegram, and if there was a package I needed, I mean, you can find a deb package anywhere. Just kick over a rock, and there it is. So now, what I don't like about it is there's the system configuration tools seem a bit light to me. I'm used to that OpenSUSE YAST, so I'm spoiled there. The default display manager, I installed Plasma, of course. Because why would you install anything else besides Plasma?
Right.
I was expecting the silky smooth SDDM display manager, and I didn't get that. I got this very jarring, very I don't know. It's probably light DM. I don't know what it was. I mean, I could change that. Not a big deal. And there was actually one thing that I'm not sure about. Normally, I say what I like, what I don't like, and I'm good. But I had to add a section here of what I'm not sure about. So when you were installing Debian, what was that?
That was the motorcycle outside.
I thought maybe
it scared me.
I thought
maybe they were landing.
I thought my phone was going off.
So
I thought it was
option.
alien. Come on.
Yeah, it's your junior high kids. So there's this option to send developer statistics from your system. Did anybody notice that when they're on the installer?
I noticed PopCon.
So there's this Debian popularity contest package statistics that would run on a weekly basis and send up to the developers what's being used.
Mhm.
And I was just I was unsure about that. It felt to have it run weekly. I don't know. I just didn't something about that. I'm just not sure about it.
That's the popularity contest for apps installed.
Yeah, I think.
I know, but I'm just not sure that I like that.
So I think that's what Ubuntu uses for their data.
No,
they pull other
they use a one-off.
Yeah,
I didn't
but
have a problem with the PopCon thing because it wasn't going to be there the next week. So,
well, I'm just saying, if I were to run this on a regular basis, I'm not sure about it. I might put it on a 32-bit system and just let it run all the time, just because. So, it's kind of my final thoughts. Some distributions focus on Flash and polish and the visual experience. Debian doesn't, and I'm good with that. So they focus on the technical underpinnings, and I think that's that they're perfect for that. I think it's fantastically stable. It was a great experience. I enjoyed it, and I also enjoy the fact that Debian supports multiple hardware platforms, even those that nobody use anymore. So, good on them for doing that. So I give it 2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up from Nate.
Yeah.
That's different from last week's review, dude. I'm just
well,
saying.
That's because it's not garbage.
Wow.
That's because it's not garbage.
I'm a little confused because Nate's the only person that came prepared with a rating system.
At least be an open source.
Forget me.
All right. Thomas, sir, how are you?
I am tired. How are you?
Awesome. What's happening? Did you try Debian?
I did. I did something a little bit unusual from my typical testing. Typically, I test it in a VM. Occasionally, I do hardware, but never both. And that's what I did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I think it actually installed faster in the virtual machine for me than it did on the hardware. And I think the reason for that is because my virtual machine has 4 cores, whereas the desktop that I installed on has 4 threads. So I think that was part of it, even though the desktop has more RAM, or did at the time. Yeah, it does have more RAM. But otherwise, it's all right. I probably wouldn't actually use it in my day-to-day life. I grabbed the free net ISO. I understand why they don't have a normal ISO, live ISO, on their website, but it only has torrents because servers and bandwidth are expensive. But it would be nice that they could at least give a link to it on like a SourceForge page or something like that, because I would have preferred a live environment as like an example, and maybe just have it installed through the Debian installer, and they'd be like, this is an example of what you could have. It's more customizable through the installer. But otherwise, rock solid as always. I'm one of those people that are a stickler for kernel versions, and I was very happy to see that they have a much newer kernel version. It's
Low
not
latency?
A 5. No, it was not a low latency. It wasn't no 5.0 kernel, so you can't do any ray tracing or anything like that. But 419, not bad. I installed XFCE because XFCE is my baby, and I like it a lot. It's better than GNOME at least. But XFCE always looks trash when you first install it, if you ask me, because light themes just no. You're having flashbacks of light themes in early 80s, and it's just no, please, no. Wasn't even born yet.
So I'm a little confused, Thomas. You said you couldn't get a live USB going? Or you
I was just looking at that
one?
too, Zeb.
I didn't see one on the website, so I just went for the net ISO, and that worked.
Yeah, there is a live one, because
having
that's the one that failed for me first. There is a live one there.
Yeah, like I know there is a live ISO. It's just not. You can't download it from their website. I think you have to download it as a torrent, and I don't use torrents because reasons.
I got the live off of Amir in just the ISO format.
Yeah, I stuck the link in chat.
Okay, I must have been blind then.
You're wrong, Thomas.
You're not.
I'm sorry. I didn't know.
It's just a very bad website, and always has been.
As my wife is wont to say, you looked like a guy. That's why you couldn't find it.
Well, it is true that the website is not as clear as it could be. Let's put it that way.
Especially the download page.
Right.
It was very confusing. I had a really hard time trying to get the right ISO.
So maybe he was looking for Debian and not Debian.
It could be, Tyler. It could be.
I thought they
the
did
good
we
news,
officially
Thomas.
choose the D-Bane?
Yeah. The good news, Thomas, is you no longer have the worst pronunciation for Debian.
Right.
Yeah.
Chris, let us know what it's called, mate.
Debian?
Come on, Chris.
Debian.
Debian.
Debian. It's Debian.
The bane of all Linux distros.
Sorry, when I have
I don't know.
dyslexia. When I first saw it, I saw it as Debane. I started calling it Debane. It isn't until recently that I found it was Debian.
Chris, don't ever apologize. I love that name.
Isn't it crazy, though, how first impressions, how hard it is to get rid of how you first used to call things?
Yes. When I was
Absolutely.
introduced to people as CJ, there are people today calling me CJ. And I haven't used that name in ages. So yes, I know exactly what you're saying on that.
Well, you would have been closer if you pronounced it Debian, but that's okay.
All right. Thanks, CJ. Appreciate it. Jackie. How are you, sir?
No mic.
We don't have no audio there, Jackie. We will come back to you so you can see if you can get it working. Eric, sir.
Hi.
What's happening?
Not much. I spent a little bit of time with Debian earlier this week.
You extreme distro hopped, I hear?
I did. Well, I was trying to get my tablet to work as an external monitor, as a second monitor, and I was able to do that, but I was having some issues in Plasma and something with a compositor. I'm sure I can fix it. I just didn't want to play with it right now, and so I just installed vanilla Ubuntu, and it works. Anyway, and I just it heightens my excitement for the show whenever I do that.
Right.
I wait until 7:30, and then I'm like, I think I'll just throw another distro on. It gets me all amped up.
Why do I run into these people all the time? Ryan was the same way. Like, I mean, why?
Because it's like the host does it too.
Well,
Matt, we weren't talking to you, sir.
I'm not as good at breaking it, but
that's my specialty.
I'm good at wiping partitions. So, yeah, and I think it's kind of fits with the topic today because I installed Debian and I thought, this is the same as it's ever been, which is great because they persist and just continue forward, and it just is one of the bedrocks of Linux. I mean, it really is. It is. It's like a constant, right? You know what you're getting, and if they ever really change that, you'd be pretty surprised. So from the standpoint of Debian continuing forward and releasing, there's older packages. We talked a little bit earlier on the Europe edition. It really comes down to if you want something rock solid, stable, that isn't going to change, you get it set up the way that you want it to be set up, you install the software you want, and that will persist for as long as that machine runs and there's power going into the back of it, it will do that. And that is, like it or not, that is a beauty of that system. And, I've had servers that run Debian and literally will just run for years. And there's very few updates to run except for security updates, and that's it. I would not run it as a desktop because, as I just said, I'm a little more extreme than that. I'm looking for a little more excitement and looking for newer packages and software. But it's hard to find fault with something as steady, stable, and reliable as Debian is. And they continue to do it time after time after time.
Yep. And we talked earlier, Dave, you talked about being spoiled, but all of our being spoiled is based on that stability of Debian, so it all goes back to that. Chicken, are you there? Chicken. Going once.
Debian may be stable, but my stability comes off of Arch. Thank you.
Chicken was just here. I think he's doing something.
I think he shut off again. Did Jackie get his mic working? We'll take that as a no.
All right. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just had a real quick question. Since Dave was making a bit of a joke there, has anyone ever tried to make a stable version or a fixed release version of Arch? Or is that just completely stupid and pointless?
It's not stupid and pointless, but it's kind of contrary to what they designed the release to be.
Manjaro.
I mean, Manjaro takes all the packages and kind of tests and holds them for 1 to 7 days to make sure they're stable before they release it. So, I mean, it's more less. Even though I haven't had a crash in years, Manjaro is still considered more stable than mainline Arch because they do about 1 to 7 more days of testing on each package to make sure it installs properly before they release it into their repos.
Someone should do it and call it Lurch.
Don't forget about Salient also. I mean, Silent, the one-man band over there seems to be doing a pretty good job. I mean,
yeah, but that's really deployment, right? That's installing and then some customizations, but they're running mainline underneath that. So anyway, I didn't want to waste time. I just
Okay.
wasn't sure if someone had done it.
So I wanted to answer a question Rocco had for me earlier about the installing a package from a different repo.
Mm-hmm.
That was a sudo apt install the -t, the repo, the version name. So that'd be like Buster, whatever the next one is, or Sid, and then the package name. And that's after again adding the repo and telling apt that say, hey, you don't want this as your main repo.
That's actually a pretty nice thing you can do. So.
Yep. Very nice.
All right. Chicken, sir. Hold on. Your mic is not on. I don't know if you're muted, but your mic is not on.
Is that my microphone?
That is your microphone. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Awesome. Debian.
It's actually, it went pretty well for me. Debian 9 I wasn't too happy with, and I know I hear everybody saying not much changed. Well, my mind changed. I had a little more of an open mind this time, and I liked everything about it except for one thing. And that was when I went to uninstall Firefox, it force installed Chrome, or Chromium rather. And so I went to remove Chromium, and it force installed Firefox. And so I Googled this, and I tried removing like task-gnome, which was at some point supposed to bind them together. Nothing that I tried online actually stopped this from happening. And I don't believe it's okay to force install another piece of software when a user's trying to remove another one. Like Debian is the last distro I would expect to do something like that. So that was a big no-no for me, and I just uninstalled the whole thing.
Yeah, I could see it coming from a distro that was customized and put together by somebody who wanted to make something easier for people. But I don't think I would expect that behavior from Debian either.
So I looked into this for Chicken, and there are a lot of packages in Debian that depend on a web browser. You will never remove them all.
That's really not good at all.
Well, I can't argue with that, but I was actually pretty surprised how many packages there are that have a web browser as a reverse depend. And as I suspected, a lot of them are help files.
I don't know if Chrome still supplies www-browser things, because I think there was an issue at some point where like I could get around it by installing like Chrome first and then uninstalling whatever, but I don't think like actual Chrome provides www-browser.
Does that happen often as far as like with other programs or pieces that it
honestly, until Chicken mentioned it on the Telegram, I never noticed before, and then I started looking into it a little bit. I knew that if I swapped out, if I removed Firefox, it would put Firefox ESR back on sometimes. So I started from there, and there's just certain things that have Firefox as a reverse depend. For instance, I think Task Desktop has a Firefox depend, which is probably the base task cell package for all of the desktop other desktop packages. I'm looking at the reverse depends right now. I'm seeing Cinnamon. I'm seeing some KDE stuff. I'm seeing Mate, Elliot. So pretty much everything. And honestly, I think it's going to come down to where they want people to see the documentation.
Yeah, but don't they usually just tag it with like xdg-web, and so that it pulls in whatever the default internet?
Yeah. So what should happen? Well, yeah, but and the reason I wouldn't see it is because I normally install, if I install a different web browser, it's supplying that. As long as it's supplying whatever the depends are looking for, then I can take Firefox off. But if you take Firefox off first, it's going to throw whatever's next in the dependencies list.
Well, would that be different if it was something like you were using GNOME and then you had like Epiphany browser installed?
Honestly, it's going to depend on how each one of the control files are written. And I don't know. I didn't look at them all. I just looked at several. But that's what's doing it. I mean, I've got like 50 packages here I'm looking at that have a web browser dependency.
I went to remove one of them, and it threatened to take out like the whole desktop, and I was like,
"Well, yeah, you have to watch some of that stuff." It is annoying. I'll give you that.
Everything else about it, I was actually kind of pleased with. I figured out how to add myself to sudoers, which for some reason I could not figure out before, and I was probably just missing something. And it was pretty reliant. Like things were a little old, granted, but they weren't as old as I thought they would be. They were within my lifetime, so it was
Yeah.
So
I'm not on my screen, so you can't see my massive eye roll right now. But, only people in the universe that think things are out of date are people that run rolling distributions. But I digress.
So, if it's okay with you, Rocco, before we get to English Bob, I'll just give my brief experience. If
Do
that's
it.
okay.
Do it.
For me, Debian is a bit like Arch. It's there, you can install it, and it works. But why would you, when you've got such wonderful Arch derivatives that do all the work for you? And in Debian's case, why on earth would you go through the headache of having to install it when you've got MX? I mean, everything that everybody has talked about tonight about the difficulty they've had with root and sudoers and changing the sources over and everything else, adding contrib and non-free, MX takes all that headache out of it for you. So I can understand why it's there, and I'm appreciative of why it's there. And I think I talked about on the Europe show, people say, oh, I don't know why I would use it. Well, great Uncle Todd, who I've installed his system 4 years ago, has never phoned me since because it just works. So that's that for me, that's the used case scenario. If you just want to install an operating system and have it work and not having to worry about it, you can do Debian, no problem at all. The other thing that I want to pick up on, and I think Tyler picked up on it a little bit, is they've gone Wayland with GNOME. And everybody's going, God, why on earth have they done that? Well, I'm actually going to applaud them for doing that. Otherwise, we would have another 12 years of Wayland getting nowhere. So now we've got a distribution where they are forcing Wayland on you if you use GNOME. I know you can go back to Xorg if you want to, but now you might get a few more users reporting errors, reporting faults, reporting bugs. Now, I know it's a big ask because the Linux community isn't that good at reporting bugs properly, are we, boys and girls? So that might fall flat on their face for them. But once Shikin had reminded me, what am I messing about with an ISO for? Get the net installer. And Pete Dennett had reminded me, don't go for GNOME. It's got Wayland and it's not going to work with Nvidia. Once I got those two sorted out, got to me black screen, went in, added me bits and pieces to the repo, then did an NVIDIA driver install, rebooted. Great, I've got my XFC up. Yep. And then I went, oh, do you know what? Boring. I can't be bothered with all this. But more importantly, Dorian pointed me to and reminded me of Q4OS, which is another fantastic Debian 10 installation that just works.
Love it.
They've got a brilliant system of you boot up and it goes, oh, I've noticed you've got an NVIDIA graphics card. Would you like me to install the drivers for you? You click yes, reboot, it's done. And I'm on the KDE, and yes, it's using 5.14.5. So Debian, for me, gets a big thumbs up, but unless you've got a specific use case, use Q4OS or use MX. It is, after all, the second best distribution on the planet.
A quick tip for you.
That is precisely why I tried the default GNOME desktop for Debian, is because I wanted to see how it was with Wayland on my ThinkPad.
Mm-hmm. Go on, Chicken, you were going to say?
If you did ever want to use GNOME, now that you have the net install thing done and you can actually get through the installation, you should be able to do it that way. It's just the actual GNOME ISO it's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, I went XFCE, so I guess I could add GNOME back on there. So that was my experience. So for me, Debian gets a double thumbs up. So it was all good, but it nearly ended up as a next, but thanks to Shikin, it didn't. So moving on, English Bob, how did you get on with Debian?
Guten Tag, guten Abend. I got on very. Yeah. Thank you very much, Desvidanya. Yeah, got on very, very well with Debian 10, installed it in a VirtualBox and onto the bare metal. However, I have to say, watching this show this evening, I could giggle all evening. Things like boring, sterile, bland, uninteresting. That's almost as funny as pairing together words like arch and stable or gentoo and simple. If you've ever been a server admin, Debian, pure Debian on the desktop is the closest experience you will ever get to Debian running on a server. Somebody else said it. You can install Debian on a server. It will run 24/7. Bang, you're done. You can forget about it. You can pass it down through your generations. It's that good. Very, very similar on the desktop. Zeb, you made a couple of great points. Why on earth would you use Debian when you can use Q4OS or you can use MX Linux? As we know, I agree with you. MX Linux is the second best distro pre-built on the planet after Peppermint. I had to get that in. However, why would you do a plain Arch build? Why would you do a plain Gen 2 build, which I believe you're doing next, Zebby? For the simple reason it's your distro from the ground up. You download and install MX, sure, it's fantastic, but in effect, you're using somebody else's creation. It's not yours. And there are people in the community who thrive on having their own unique individual distro. That's the simple answer to your question. Otherwise, why would we have Arch, Gen 2, Slack, and all the rest of it as a base distro that you can then build your own? There'd be no point, would there? So that would be my answer to you on there. I think Debian 10's fantastic. It does exactly what it says on the tin. Yes, you could say it's bland and boring, but it will be running long after you have bought your Arch or any other distro install as solid as you like. Sure, it's not bleeding edge. It's not got the latest packages, but the benefit of that is stability. It will run as the day is long. Simple as that. I had no problems with it. I actually installed LXDE just to trip down memory lane. It was sweet. It was really fast, really quick. Fantastic. Very, very simple to do. No problem with any drivers, either AMD or Nvidia, or VirtualBox for that matter. Absolutely great. What more can you want? How could you possibly bash pure Debian? Unless, of course, you're a Windows fan. Just a thought. That's me done. By the way, Rocco, apologies I couldn't make it to the earlier show this evening, so I thought I'd dob in on the second one.
It's all good, brother.
But yeah, so if anybody would like to pick holes in that or add to it, the only thing I would say, Zeb, is, you know, don't forget the other advantage of doing a pure Debian over something like MX is it doesn't come with the thumb up bot for Distro Watch out the box. So that is a benefit. And Dolphin is now going to publicly assassinate me. Cheers, everybody.
Yeah. Okay, nice one. Thank you. Pizza.
Okay, so I explained my experience in the Europe edition, so I'm just going to summarize it. Tons of issues. Installed Budgie. Budgie ran very weirdly for some reason, and yeah. And then I switched back to, I got an upgrade, and Debian just started running super slow. However, when I booted back into my Arch hard drive, it didn't feel slower. So I feel like Debian didn't really like the new hardware very much. And I just feel like it's not made for the desktop. I feel like it's better as a server first and then desktop second.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Fair enough.
Opinion. I had too many issues to recap.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So if you're interested in all of my issues, go watch the Europe edition.
Good, man. I like that. Nice plug for the Europe edition. Okay, so Dolphin, we're going to twist it around slightly. You're going to be doing, I guess, MX19 soon. What features in Debian 10 are you looking forward to implement and be able to use?
Well, we're using one right out of the gate, and it's in their new system for changing the permissions on the app repos, so that you can. God, that's boring. You really don't want to know this stuff.
We want to know it.
Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to take our test repo that we already made easier to install from, and we're going to make it so that people, even if they leave it enabled, it won't nuke their system later on down the road. It's going to work a lot like Debian Backports works now with their priority system. So if you take the Backports repo, you guys were talking about it earlier. If you take Debian's Backport repo and you enable that thing, and you do an dist update, it's not going to pull anything from the Backports repo because they set the priorities lower on it. On the server side, you don't have to do a thing. In fact, if you have to if you want to override it, you can override it. We did that in MX14 back in the day. That was bad. That was pretty rough. What are we doing? I don't know. They just got some updated packages. We're throwing them in there. I'm going to guarantee you that I've installed my Debian 10 base system in a way that none of the rest of you have, because this sucker got deb bootstrapped from ground up. And I'm running it right now. I'm running an internal alpha of MX19. It's fine. I'm thoroughly breaking things on the non-system D side, but it'll be okay. It'll be fine. What I like right now about the Debian project is they've made it easier in Buster to do some of the things that we do in Annex and MX than it was under Stretch, because certain things like if you don't want to run System D, and some people don't, and that's fine. I love you guys. You're good. We've got two different methods in our ecosystem right now not to avoid it. And MX, you're not going to avoid it. It's installed. Just deal with it. I know some of you think it's not. It was. It always has been. Quit telling me it wasn't, because we built it. But what they did is a lot of the patches that for the old System D sim system are gone now. But they brought in all of the EU dev and login and all that stuff that none of you guys care about, but that some of you people out there who don't care about System D don't realize that Debian has made it possible to build it without System D. But when they say it, they mean it. The Debian init diversity team is a pretty good bunch of guys, and they've made it possible that if you want to build a Debian system up from scratch without using System D as a backend, you can do it. And it's actually not all that difficult to do, and you can do it with packages that are only available in the Debian repository. Don't have to host anything ourselves. Now, MX is we're being, whatever we're doing, we're still playing around with shims that no one else supports. But that's beside the point. That's for 3 months down the road. I just like the fact that I've got changes in this one on the init script side, so I'm just happy. I got somewhere in a change log somewhere is my name, and I'm really happy about that. So
nice.
Congratulations to the Debian guys on a good release. My own little personal world here on my MX system here is running just fine. The only things that I've broken are things that I've broken myself, and yeah. Although I kind of wish we weren't still stuck back in 4.12 on XFCE. But Debian's stuck on 4.12 back in XFCE.
Mm-hmm.
Shot across the bow.
Nah, it's not hard to compile, and those guys are good guys over at XFCE too. So.
All right, JJ,
how's it going, you guys?
What's up?
So I decided to actually jump into this one and actually use test out Debian, but I didn't get a chance to do it on hardware. I did it in a virtual box machine, which was pretty interesting. Although my only minor gripe about Debian, people think it's it is stable and all that, but I'm more of as you all may know, I am a minimal install junkie. If there's a minimal install option, I always go for it. Otherwise, it's no go. I'm the weird guy who went through the net install and installed 3 desktop environments. I'm not sure if that contributed to this, but there's a large list of games that I do not think I would ever use on my system. So why are they installed by default instead of being an option? per se. And I'm just saying, Debian being it's stable itself, and many people, normal users, not necessarily playing games, why is that menu option still there? I know it's a little bit of a gripe, but and it's not necessarily for space. I want to optimize whenever I install a distro. I wanted to make it as minimal as possible so that if there's something I want, I can install it later.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and also one use case I would probably bring up for Debian is it's very. I know that my university, some courses, they use Debian as the basis for some of their VM labs. Their labs for the course assignments. They actually use Debian as the OS to actually run scripts in order to do some certain tasks. I know some InfoSec courses do use Debian, and also the operating system class that I took actually used Debian for some of its examples and also test cases in order to show us what goes on in OS, how an OS works, stuff along those lines.
Very nice. I do want to point out that our community member Steve, who emails in all the time, he emailed in and said that I won't go into the whole email because we don't have another 3 hours, but he did upgrade Debian to Buster, and it went flawlessly. But I think he is overtaking me in being able to break his system. So you guys that do email him, I know some of you do, you just have to give him a hard time for me. That's all right. All right, so there is our take on Debian. I would probably sum it up as it is a very stable and very nice system that maybe is not for everybody because of the philosophy behind what they're trying to do. But for those who buy into that philosophy, it is pretty awesome. So there you have that. All right. We have to pick a distro for next week.
Oh, okay. Sorry for jumping in.
Yeah, don't jump right in there, Joshua.
I can't wait. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
All right, sure. So for a while now, I've been clicking the random distribution button 15,000 times on DistroWatch. These operating systems, I thought I just kind of found, and I decided, okay, I will use them as long as they have nice looking themes and they have a picture that does not look ugly. Yeah, I don't know why I heard a desk slam there, but okay. With being said, there's Scepter, built on Debian. It's a nice blue theme.
And you get on me about my pronunciation of it?
Yeah, I know, it's Debian. What, do I need to call it Debian?
Joshua, do you have a pick that you would like us to try?
If I was to pick one out of the 5, I think that I would actually pick Voyager Live. It's actually a Ubuntu-based distribution with some extra add-ons. But I think that might be a little too lazy. It has Conky and there's other editions of Voyager, like a GNOME Shell edition.
Okay, so one thing that interests me is there hasn't been a new release recently. However, the Shell OS, I tried it a while ago, and it's like to try it again. It's an Arch-based distro using its own DE based, I think, on Plasma.
And what's it called?
The DE is called the Shell, and the OS is called the Shell OS.
Yeah, except for you don't want to use the Shell OS because the ISO is from about 2017.
Yeah, that's the issue.
And it's based on Arch. Your best bet is you have to compile it from probably Manjaro, unless you want to do a full-blown Arch install, which, FYI, probably...
And Tuesday, I'd like to try that too.
That is the people that took over Intergo's projects.
Yeah,
that is.
So,
So-
but anybody else have a suggestion?
Here's a suggestion that is kind of related to this week's challenge. We did Debian 10 Buster for stable. There is a distribution called Seduction, which is based off of SID. We wanted to try the opposite end of the Debian spectrum.
Isn't that, if I remember correctly, isn't that a continuation of Sidx or Sidux or however they used to put it?
See, it says here it was a I read it was a continuation of something.
Or part of
AptoSid, I think, is what it said. It was a continuation of.
Yeah, because it was originally a break from the Canonics distribution, if I remember correctly, something along those lines.
Why not Fedora Silverblue?
That's the future, Adam. That's why.
It is the future.
Yeah,
living in the future.
So tell us, Adam. I mean, going off of picking the distro, you people figure out what you want to suggest for the distro, but tell us about Silverblue because I know you were excited about it.
So Silverblue is a very different type of distro that a lot of people have used. So it's based on RPM OS tree, which is an immutable sort of base image for the operating system. So you don't actually modify anything outside of /etc or /var. Your home directory and other things are mounted within /var. And so the advantage is you have a completely secure system where things can't mess with it. Not even yourself, not even root. Nobody can edit the base image outside of RPM OS tree, which can only layer packages on top of the existing image. For updates, everything is pulled down as a new image, and then you reboot and you just have all the updates. There's no DNF update, there's no package installation or anything. It just pulls down an image, you reboot, you boot into the new one. Simple as that. Everything on top of it is run in containers. So it's either a Flatpak application container or a Fedora Toolbox, which is a Podman based container, similar to Docker, except the Toolbox containers have a lot of other things pass through them, like your home folder, your user mapping, your graphics stack. So you can actually run graphical applications from within the containers. And the advantage of all this is security, manageability. So you can have different versions running of the same application. So you can have, say, a Flatpak for, the stable version, a Flatpak for a beta version. Or if you want to build something from Git, you can start up a Toolbox container, build it from Git, and run it from within there. And none of them conflict with one another because they're all self-contained.
So basically, every package that you install is in itself, by itself.
All the Flatpaks are, and any packages you install in a Toolbox container. A Toolbox container can contain an arbitrary amount of packages. It's completely, think of it as a containerized version of Fedora running on top of Fedora. So everything that you do in Fedora, you can, with the exception of some things, because it is a container, it's not a VM, can be done within the Toolbox container. Installing packages, doing development things, running games. I was actually able to run Guild Wars 2 in Lutris, in Wine, inside a container, and it was glorious.
Now, is there any duplication as far as libraries and stuff like that? If you're installing,
they're all contained within their own thing, so they only have the libraries they need. So if you have a package that uses, if you have it in a Toolbox container, if you have one container for, I don't know, GNOME tweaks, and then you have another container for gedit, they're obviously going to be duplicating a lot of the GNOME stuff because they're running in separate containers and they're doing that. With Flatpaks, you have runtimes that run below the Flatpaks, which are they themselves Flatpaks. So you could have a GNOME 3.32 runtime that all apps built against GNOME 3.32 will reference when they run, as opposed to duplicating GNOME every single time you run a Flatpak. KDE has similar libraries. There's libraries for FFmpeg. There's runtimes for your Nvidia driver, GL libraries, things like that.
Sounds a lot like the Microsoft subscription model that they're trying to push Windows 10 to.
Okay.
How?
I don't see that connection, but okay.
So give me the one line that says this is why Silverblue is the future.
Because containerized applications are the future.
So what advantage does this give me if I'm running Silverblue?
you can run multiple versions of a package. It's like for development, it's very useful because you can have your own development versions as well. As far as user capabilities go, Flatpaks by themselves are normally sandboxed, and they're using SC Linux and also some other C group sandboxing in Fedora to provide some kind of security model there. The installation and removal of Flatpaks is seamless in that you can install one application, and if you want to remove it, you don't have to worry about it taking other things with it, a la Debian earlier. And you can just have a compartmentalized installation of every one of your packages. You can also have the developer push the updates to the repo as opposed to the distro maintainer having to rebuild the packages.
And you can never bork your base system, so you never have to nuke and pave.
Your entire base system is immutable. It cannot be modified. So if it works, it's gonna work.
Okay, now what happens if you have software that you want to use, and it's available only as an app image and not as a Flatpak?
App
Then you're
image works
like
fine.
SOL.
App image works fine.
Just download it and execute it.
Yeah.
Okay, so it would run an app image.
Yeah.
No problem.
So
And
the immutable
it won't run a snap.
Correct, because it doesn't have, you can sort of layer snap, but it's not really gonna work because of the way snap works.
Right.
But
You
you
have
can
to
run
have snap.
Flatpaks, app images.
Can't put that in.
Yeah, and so you are able to layer packages on top of the host OS. Layering packages is not the intended or ideal way of installing packages, though some of them require it, such as NVIDIA drivers and some applications like DaVinci Resolve and Google Chrome install themselves to /opt, which traditionally has been a problem with this because /opt is not writable. So there are ways that the OS tree guys have gotten around basically being able to mount opt and /var opt and doing some clever linking and such that tells Google Chrome and the others that they're in /opt. But you would have to layer them on top, which is not the ideal way of doing it, because when you layer a package, it takes so you have like the base image of Fedora, and then you layer a package on top of it. It takes the image and the packages and sort of forms them into a new image that includes your package. The advantage of that is when you go to update the RPM OS tree for a brand new version of Fedora, like a new updated version of Fedora, your layered packages also get updated with that OS tree. So you get the same advantages of just rebooting and magically getting the new ones when you boot back in.
Okay, I have one more question, and then I'm done with my questions so far. Usually I just sit here quietly. What happens if you are developing software? How does it handle that you've got your compiler and your blah whatever? I'm not even going to specify a particular language. It shouldn't really matter. What happens with that stuff?
Those are all done in the Fedora toolbox containers, which are just containers that contain a small base install of Fedora. They also include DNF within those toolboxes. And you can install anything that you need to from the DNF repositories into the toolbox container to work with it as a developer. The advantage is you can have separate versions in separate containers. So if you want to have a version that includes some pull requests or some other additions or patches, you can have them separate from a base version of your software. You can make comparisons, run them side by side, etc.
Okay, I have to think about this.
It also means that you can have multiple versions of the same type of compiler, which is pretty useful.
You can do anyway.
Yeah.
Kind
You
of.
can do that anyway, as long as you know which one you're using.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean that's.
And even from a user standpoint, like say there's a version of a package, a version of a package that you normally use in the repos, and then they come out with some neat new beta version or neat new development version. And if traditionally you tried to update that through like a PPA or something like that, you would basically hose your system because you'd be stuck with the beta version because your other stuff gets overwritten. But with the toolbox containers or with the Flatpaks, you can run the beta versions or new versions of software, test them out, submit bug reports, do all your orderly duties, and then blow it away when you don't want it, and your whole system is still running just fine. You're not stuck with your beta software.
Now, with all this stuff stuck in this little container and that little, toolbox and whatever. How does it affect the efficiency of just running stuff? Is it slow it down?
I've seen no performance differences whatsoever.
Or is it, do you need like super duper great hardware and
I have super duper
Just
great
don't
hardware.
use a virtual machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It
don't
doesn't
use
play well with VirtualBox or anything. So
Hey, Adam. Adam is a dolphin. How do you know how are they doing layering it with like a union file system whenever you fire up that container? Is this just realistically getting the two file systems are being unified, or are you operating inside a completely containerized environment when you're running that app?
when you're running a toolbox container, is that what you're referring to?
Well, any of them. I had to let the dog in, so I didn't catch quite everything you were saying.
So the flat packs exist on their own, as well as the toolbox containers. They exist on their own.
Yeah.
The toolbox containers do have your home directory pass through, so they do have access, but it's through Podman and their way of doing it, similar to Docker. So that's the only real thing that affects your base system outside of the container is your home directory that's passed in as well. And all of your other things like your sudo permissions and a lot of other things are also passed through to make it as seamless an experience while also still being containerized and separate.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to answer Barbara's question as well about a super duper computer. I've been using it for a few days. Flat packs are new to me, so that's been a bit of an experience, but I'm using a 10-year-old PC. It's an old Core 2 quad, Q8400 with 6 gigs of RAM, and it's running way better on that than on my brand new hardware in a VM.
Okay. Thank you.
Nice.
So I'm glad I could, confuse the vast majority of people.
Yeah, you notice how a lot of
Some random
they
container.
glazed over as you said.
Yeah. And notice how quiet it got. Yeah.
They were glazing over.
Actually, it reminded me a lot of the way Puppy layers on the Squash FS files on top and the persistence files on Annex and MX. That's not on an app level. That's on a total installed file system level. But those files only capture the changes to the base file system. Realistically, on Annex or in MX and Annex, for instance, I can take a system, I can build up whatever I want, I can remaster. That's my new default system. And those tools are available to all the users. That's not just something on the dev side. And then after that, it's all on the OS level. You still have to hose all the changes to back it off. And what you're saying is it's on that one package. It's kind of neat. I kind of take a look.
If you layer on top of if you have the base install before you've layered anything, and then you layer on top of it, and you reboot into the new OS image that has your layered packages, you can still through Grub boot into the previous one. I think they keep up to 5 of them.
Yeah, okay.
So you can, and presumably this technology could be used in other distros as well. I mean, you could conceivably imagine a time where you could have one LVM partition, which is how they handle all this, one LVM partition, and just boot into OS trees of different distros, and your home folder and your flat packs and everything just kind of transfer from one environment to another.
Now, I will give Fedora real money if they make the logistical diagram of this process a 6-disk CD changer that's underneath the back seat of my truck, because that's the layers right there.
Yeah.
It's not just computers that are viewing this as the future, because it's exactly what Google is trying to do with the Android phone system, is make an immutable base system on which the individual manufacturers can put their tweaks and doodads and extra apps, but the base layer is immutable, is solid and secure, and only gets updates from Google when they come out.
Are you talking about Fuchsia or whatever it is?
They're trying to implement that in like Android 9?
Well, they're backing up more of the Google services into their own update stream. But yeah, basically, sort of, kind of.
So I think Silverblue is going to be our distro challenge.
We haven't decided yet.
I don't know about that.
Because I was going to ask. I have been wanting to get you guys to review Draugr OS again. for a few weeks now.
No.
Did I just hear a straight no?
No.
Maybe pay Rocco.
You just heard a straight up no.
Come on.
Rocco, maybe he only
Come on.
understands next.
Yeah, no. I mean, Thomas, at some point we will try it, but not like right yet.
Okay.
No. So.
Okay.
Personally,
Why expect us all to jump into a pond full of Drugger OS ISOs?
And the reason I say that, Thomas, is because there are so many distros that people have suggested that we try that we have not got to yet. I mean, Regolith was brought up by John. I don't know if it was IllumiOS, brought up by Ron. There's plus the ones that were already suggested. So there's many distros that we got to get to. So
fair enough.
We just have to make a choice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
can
you're in the queue.
I'd like to give you an option, if I may.
Go ahead, EB.
As we've just done Debian, why don't we go to the exact opposite of MX18 Linux and go to a country that is trying to completely insulate themselves from the rest of the world? Why don't we go have a look at Astra Linux using the TWM desktop? Might be a nice, neat little easy distro that everybody can use. And it'd be interesting to get everybody's take on it, especially Dolphins.
What? Didn't we do MX Linux already?
He doesn't. He's not talking about MX. He wants to do that
Astra Linux, yeah.
Some Russian thing.
His buddy Putin was over there with it.
Oh, it's Astra Linux.
That's the one Ghosty's running. Ghosty Linux.
When's the last time we looked at antics?
Dolphin, terrible thing, mate. Envy.
Linux Astra?
Joe, I don't think we have that I can remember.
Yeah. Well,
We did MX, but I don't think we did Antics.
Well, I think maybe my thoughts are it might have been way in the beginning of this.
Yeah, before
Come
anybody
on,
was
guys and girls, please get off a distro watch. There's a bazillion distros out there, from all over the world. Brazilian, Russian, Ukrainian. Anyway,
Linux is
Korean.
Really? Let's get off the, can I borrow, Dolphins distro watch bot clicker app, please?
Okay, should we accept that?
You're basically saying that we should
suggest one.
I'd say Bodhi. We haven't done something really different. There you go.
Well, how we did Alpine Linux yet? Because that's Norway, I think.
Yeah, but that's not a.
Alpine is very, very cool, actually, but I would imagine most of the people, including the ones here, probably wouldn't get it.
Very, very cool.
I like
Very, very
dark.
It's not a real regular desktop type. From what I know.
Bodhi's the quality suggestion because their community's great. And
Yeah, I'm down with Bodhi.
Is everybody down with Bodhi?
I don't know. I think.
Sounds
What's
fine.
wrong with it? I have no problems with it.
Well,
Yeah,
EB doesn't want to
it's
do it,
different.
so that settles it. We
It's
just
good.
can't do Bodhi because EB is shaking his head no.
Guys, who wants to try out a plasma?
Let's get here with the program. Really? Are we really going to stay in that safe little space? Really? Come on.
My other recommendation was Mangia.
Well, Magia just came out with 7, so.
Yeah, and besides,
So
I
you
kind
guys
of
did that
like it.
one
Kind of
to make
like your
sense.
average Fedora.
All right, let's do Bodhi and just be done with the whole going
Wait,
back
what
and
about
forth.
Louis Linux?
We're good.
Because we don't want to waste the last 10 minutes going back and forth. We have to come up with, just so you guys think about it, because Eric suggested this in the forums. And by the way, there is a forums now. Eric, is there a forums now?
There is.
There is.
Tell us about the forums, Eric.
Oh my goodness. Well, so someone made a suggestion, and for all of us who can't keep up with Dorian and Chicken in Telegram, who move at maybe a slightly slower pace. Yeah, I set up a discourse forum for BigDaddyLinux. So it's discourse.bigdaddylinux.com. And we're just getting started. So come on in, sign up, leave some suggestions, kick the tires. And we're pretty happy with it so far and would like to get some more feedback on it. So
For any of you guys that are worried about it, I'll be in there speeding things up, so you're good.
Well, just so you know, Chicken and Dorian, I made a show off your desktop category just for you guys.
Nice.
So, there you go.
I would like to thank Eric for all of the hard work on the website.
Yes.
He has done a ton of stuff on the website and continues to do so. The discourse forums are awesome. They have pretty much every section you could want, from the distro challenge that you can get feedback from to Linux Spotlight to everything. And I think that there's a Telegram is a great program for what it is, but a lot of times conversations get lost. And Discourse allows you to have those conversations and stay focused on just one conversation rather than bouncing back and forth and scrolling through hundreds of pages. So
right, and to Rocco's point, so I made the suggestion about, if you guys see something interesting, if you think of a distro that would be an interesting challenge, great, let's talk about it, because I feel like we waste 15 or 20 minutes here sometimes, just sort of, and I don't mind the discussion, but it would be if we could just say, well, we talked about these three because they were interesting because ABC, and and have just some amount of thought go into it, because I feel like sometimes we just sort of, oh, that's right, wait, what was released this week? And we're just really going off the cuff. And the discussion tonight about Silverblue was awesome. I didn't know any of that. I mean, I'm really glad that we got a chance to talk about that. Unfortunately, nobody wants to do it, but
I still don't know anything about it, having listened to it all. So yeah, you carry on.
Well, instead of needing to bark out a bunch of Linux distros at once and operating systems and whatever, I was thinking that maybe on the discourse we should every week we should make a list of operating systems that we're going to put in that we want to have as a distro challenge, and then on Saturday it'll be limited to just those options that are there that have been picked over the week.
Wow, isn't that exactly what Adam just said?
That is exactly what Adam just said.
Sorry.
So now we have Captain Obvious?
Yes, pretty much.
Do I still have my Dr. Random role?
This is how quick he is. Took care of it today. Us guys with senior citizen eyes can read that thing beautifully now. He took care of it.
Yep.
Josh, you don't lose any of your titles. You become Josh the first of his name. He is both obvious and obscure at the same time.
And also, it is official that all of the servers, the BigDaddyLinux website, is moved over to UpCloud, right?
That's right.
Nice.
Yeah, that was the other project of the week. So I spent the time I would have spent on Debian doing that.
And then he extreme distro hopped during the show to try out Debian. All right. I did want to get your guys' take on this because we have all these stories that come out about, well, not all these stories. The tech media likes to point out when things get hacked, or especially with Linux. Like if something happens with Linux, they like to jump on it right away. And there was an article that came out Wednesday on the Pale Moon browser. I don't know how many people here use the Pale Moon browser, but there was a article posted on ghacks.net about the archive server being hacked. Actually, one of the ISOs infected with some type of malware. And the story read basically that this was done way back in December of 2017. And nobody called it up until now. Now, the archive servers don't affect the actual stable release of Pale Moon, but they do house the archives. All right. Then there was an update during the week that, it look like the original story doesn't look like it panned out. So it's actually only been affected since April or June. So regardless of what I'm trying to get to the point of, there was a breach somehow affected by the Pale Moon archive servers were affected by it. But I guess what I'm trying to ask is, how many times do we see this where people jump on stories like this and you have to wait and let the dust settle before you jump on opinions of what the facts are?
All the time, especially on tech.
Every single time.
Yeah.
This is the internet. If you wait, you lose.
I try really hard to not jump to a conclusion until I think the Zoom.
That's another perfect example.
That was a perfect example to me because was it possible? And the Zoom engineer said, yes, very, very, very small chance of that ever happening where that could be a factor. And everyone was saying, oh my God, my camera comes on. There's a setting that tells their camera to do that. And you can very easily go. So anyway, I don't want to get into every little detail, but it was, if you read the story the day one, you thought, oh my goodness, there's a big problem. If you read it a day or two later, it was like, oh, okay, well then maybe there's a little bit more of a story here.
Ubuntu read it too. I think that had something happen to it a week ago or something too, and they took care of it right away. But it's going to happen with this stuff. But right away, like you said, it's everybody wants to make something bigger out of it than what it is. Like it's the big news flash or whatever, and
Well, I would just say that if you see these stories out there, you might want to just go with some caution before you just echo whatever that story is saying, because a lot of times the facts are way different after they come out.
Take anything. The thing is, especially with tech media, take anything with a grain of salt. They are in the cycle of quick driving, and they are in the cycle of always trying to. They're the print version of 24/7 media, basically, on internet time.
Well, to that, I would say there's another aspect there, which is like people want to be transparent with their users and stuff. So they're going to report things like, relatively speaking, as soon as they can, which is as soon as they have some facts. And if somebody says, okay, somebody accessed our XYZ data store, like that's a pretty general statement. That can mean a lot of things, and people often think the worst immediately. But until they get more details, people mine some more logs and really figure out what happened. You can't really tell exactly what was accessed or what was done with that vulnerability or whatever.
Again, if you read the story or if you just basically glanced and skimmed the story, you could come away with that the first day saying, oh, well, Pale Moon's been hacked. Don't download or use Pale Moon. But that's not even close to what actually happened. And it was that way for 2 years.
So I'm thinking of like someone mentioned the Ubuntu GitHub being compromised. And like my first thought is, well, I doubt the GitHub is Ubuntu's primary repository for code. Yeah. So why is this a massive story other than, don't trust their GitHub?
It's clickbait titles.
Yeah,
it's clickbait for news.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because they really don't have all the details, but boy, let's make it sound like it's some horrible thing that's going on.
Well, it's saying with the GitHub that they were not able to access any of the repositories or anything that was of any importance. So, but it's just the point when you read the title that it got hacked, right away everybody's.
Well, see, that's the thing. Most of the people, the general end consumer that is going to read those type of headlines, they're going to possibly just skim the headline.
And read the first 2 paragraphs, and that's it.
And maybe the first 2 paragraphs, if you're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
But part of the problem is also people's blogs and Twitter accounts being taken as
gospel
news sources.
Yeah, news sources, whatever.
Yeah, I get all my news from memes anyway.
Yeah, I thought everybody got their news from Twitter. I'm just saying.
I like to wait for the Dark One reaction.
The Dark One reaction video. That's what we all wait for.
Hey, my last one was nice. Thank you. Sort of.
I watched that one this afternoon. It was. You were nicer than I expected you to be.
All right. Well, people are leaving, so I think that's a sign we're going over time. So.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. It's over.
Our distro for this week will be BigDaddyLinux. What does Bodhi offer as the desktop environment?
Moshka,
Enlightenment.
I think it's kind of a mixture of them.
I think it's some fork of Enlightenment.
It's Moshka.
ADE Enlightenment, somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, it's 700 megabyte download.
Anyway,
Zeb, last word, brother.
Well, like I did on Biddle Europe, I'd like to remind everybody that OggCamp is going to be happening in Manchester, United Kingdom on the 19th and 20th of October. So if you're in the UK and or you're in Europe, or even if you're in the States and you fancy coming over for a 2-day Linux Fest in the wonderful town of Manchester in the north of England, pop on over and see what's happening. There's going to be lots of things going on, and it's going to be my first UK Linux Fest, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Maybe not this year, but I'm definitely looking at if they do it again next year. I'd love to visit the UK for a few weeks and then check out OggCamp.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been going for 10 years, so I don't think it'll suddenly stop overnight, hopefully.
Right.
After hearing about the horror comfort stories of your flight, Zeb, I'll pass.
Just don't fly Virgin.
Right. Dan, last word.
Oh, thanks as always, Rocco, and thanks to Eric for all of his hard work on the website and the forums. Good fun over there at the forums. I actually enjoying it quite a bit. And Debian was good for me, so enjoyed that personally. And we'll give Bodhi a spin and see how it goes.
All right, Joshua, last word.
Hello, everybody. Ubuntu Cinnamon, I'm not going to even get started with that at this point because I feel like I just waste time talking about it, but here's my outcome on what I've been seeing. Debian, I actually learned to pronounce it right for the first time in my life. It's still Debian, so that's nice. And yeah, it was fun being here. Rocco, thanks again. And also, I'm writing down a community post right now. According to the Ubuntu remix codename, if you're going to have a remix, it must be Ubuntu blank remix. But I found on DistroWatch something called Ubuntu, which is a Russian desktop Linux distribution based on Ubuntu's LTS. And I think that violates the codename, so I'm going to try to work with Popey and see what's going on there. Otherwise, besides that, have a good night, everybody, and I didn't think I would say this, but long live Linux.
Chris, last word.
Word. That's about all I have to say. Other than thanks for having the Biddle every week. It's I've said it before. I'll say it again. It's the highlight of my tech week, and that's because I work with Windows at work and have to support it. And now they're throwing Apple OS in there. We're trying to figure out how that's going to integrate with the enterprise environment. But anyway, you guys, I'll see you next week. And everybody stay safe, stay hydrated. For those in the Northern Hemisphere, the ones in the Southern Hemisphere, hope you stay warm. Good night.
Matt, last word.
Want to thank you, Zeb, Dan, and Eric for all the work that you guys do with the community here, Rocco. Always appreciated. You guys doing a fantastic job between the site, the hosting, everything. Like everybody else says, highlight of my week every time we're here. As far as my last word, just note that Bodhi actually has 2 different ISOs. You have the standard, which is the 700, which somebody mentioned they downloaded. That's not going to come with anything. Bodhi's a build your own, basically, if you download that. So download the app pack if you want the full one. Just a recommendation.
Okay, good to know. Tony, last word.
I'd just like to say thanks, Rocco, for doing both the European version and this one. It makes me sit in my office chair for 4 hours, which is not good for my back, but nevertheless, it's enjoyable. I'll look forward to doing another 4-hour stint in 4 weeks' time. But I look forward to the normal, regular one next week. It is, as other people have said, it is my highlight of the week. I look forward to it. So thank you and good night.
Barbara? Hold on. You're muted.
Okay, that's because the dog was starting to make funny noises. She wants to go out and go to sleep. And then go to sleep. Anyway, I want to thank everybody. This is always fun. This is my little bit of a Linux lug because as everyone knows, I live in the Linux dead zone. So I want to thank everybody. This has been fun. I have no idea whether I'm going to try BodyLinux or not, but I did download it And thank you, Matt, for saying something about download the app package one, because I downloaded the other one first.
Yeah, the other one you get 3 applications: the terminal, Synaptic, and Midori as the web browser, and that's it.
Yeah, forget it. Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm just downloading the other one now. Thanks a lot.
Big
Good
Pod.
night.
Good night, Barb. Big Pod, last word.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for hosting the Europe edition, which was fun. And although I did want Silverblue for Distro challenge, I'm okay with Bodhi. On to the next week.
Nice. Colin.
Yes, always enjoy coming here every week. It is my highlight as well. And I'd like to thank Eric, and I think it's Bill as well, is it, who do some fantastic work on the Big Daddy Linux thing. And also you, Rocco, and Zeb. He's always there helping out as well. So you guys are all awesome. And you're making the information really flow a little bit better in regards to what we chat about. So that's pretty awesome. So there's a reference. We now have a reference point. Why isn't Discourse sending me an activation email? I don't know.
I got one.
Check your spam
Did ya?
folder.
No,
I got
I've
one.
checked
Just a few minutes
I've
ago.
checked it. I just keep refreshing. It'll probably come through eventually anyway.
I
So
got
mine right away.
Yeah, I'm using Mailgun, so I mean it's a pretty good sender. You shouldn't be getting like spam.
no, I just haven't got an email. That's all right. I'll better check
Well,
it out.
you are like all the way on the other side of the world. So
Yeah. Just wait an hour or two, Colin.
Silver dinghy, I suppose. So anyway,
gotta go to space and back.
It's tomorrow
Numerous
there already,
times.
so you got to wait.
Well, I just
Yes,
want to say
no.
that these guys are doing a lot of the work. I just hit record, dude. That's all. James.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true, Rocco.
Your email is swimming under the ocean.
James, last word.
Appreciate you
Sorry.
letting me be on the show, and I also appreciate the fact that we've all been given a voice and been able to have this opportunity in open forum just to discuss our thoughts and feelings and joke around. So this is really cool. Thanks to all of you who contribute to this. Is really cool.
Agreed. Dave.
Thank you, Rocco, and thank you all of you for creating a playground where I get to be lazy and just relax and play. Thank you.
Joe, last word.
Thank you, Rocco. Thank you, Zab. Thank you, everybody, for once again another fun week. I mentioned it earlier today too, and one of the things that's great about this is everybody, I think, doesn't matter experience level, comes away with learning something. If you want to get some information, look at the European show today, because we had a pretty healthy discussion about how hardware and firmware ties in with the distros and things like that. I'd like to think it was rather interesting. I know I had a conversation a little bit later with my friend Steve here and talking about that. There's a definite difference between heated and healthy conversations. I'd like to think we always have healthy ones. And the respect that I have for everybody. And the other thing too, Zeb, which I pointed out in the chat earlier, I love you and Ryan's subliminal marketing that you do with your colors in your background, because they finally put together that you have AMD/peppermint colors in the background of yours. So thank you again. See you next week.
Tyler, last word.
Thanks again for the show. Debian was fun, and I guess I'll have to find something to put Bodhi on, because I'm not sure I want to wipe Debian from the machines I put it on.
I have the same issue, dude, when I do the test machine, because I only got like one hard drive with 2 partitions in there, and it's like I don't want to pave over the ones I got on there. But
yeah, I've just got the single encrypted partition on the ThinkPad right now, and I kind of don't want to wipe it from it.
Dorian, last word, brother.
Hey, yeah. Thanks for having me on. I know I've been telling you maybe for a very, very long time about coming on. I've been watching you guys for a long time. It's a great show. I love it. And it's just really bad timing for me, and got the new family and all that stuff, but whatever. Anyways, love the show. Thanks for having me on, and hopefully it won't be the last time.
Yep. You're welcome anytime, man. I hope you can work out the time slot.
Yeah, thanks.
Kevin.
Hey, yeah. Thanks for hosting, Rocco. Thanks, Eric, for your hard work in changing the hosting over and setting up the forums and everything. That's been really great. Thanks, Adam, for bringing up Silverblue. I'm definitely going to give that a try.
That's right.
Sounds pretty cool.
It's the future, you know.
It really is. I mean, you laugh, but it is.
I just trolling too.
And, yeah, thanks to everyone here for showing up and voicing your experiences and giving your insights.
Adam.
Thanks, Rocco, for everything you guys do. Thanks, Zeb and Dan and everybody, really. Thanks, Eric, for your hard work. I know it's difficult doing, everything, but
Yeah, pretty much he's doing everything.
but yeah, it was fun. I'm sorry I bored the rest of you guys to tears with the Silverblue talk. I promise I won't do it again.
No, it wasn't boring.
No, it was interesting.
I was interested.
An
No,
alien
keep doing it
concept,
because
yeah.
I learned.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Good. Well, I'll do it. All right. Next week, I'll talk about Silverblue yet again.
You started
Must be a challenge.
It will.
Sure,
It will be
cool.
the new low latency kernel.
We'll start calling you Thomas Jr.
But yeah. So thanks, guys. You guys have a good night.
Steve, last word.
Always thanks. Great job, Eric. The site looks fantastic. And I will see everybody soon.
Nate.
Thanks again for everyone for being here and doing this, because you're my happy place. So thank you for bringing me to my happy place today, and I look forward to next week.
Very nice. Thomas.
Hey, sorry I didn't talk much this time. I'm kind of brain dead from Boy Scout stuff I was handling today. Thanks for having me on again. It's been a lot of fun. And I would say go check out Jogros, but it's been kind of stale this week. So
Well, it's okay
check
to say
it out.
it. It's
I
okay to
guess.
say it, man. Jackie, did you get your mic working, dude?
I think you posted a picture in Telegram of the usual problems with the mics where the USB, he's got it taped up and connected up,
Got
and
you.
it's just dead. Bless.
All right, Eric. Last word.
Come check out the forum. I mean, I know we've said that already, but I really do think it could be a interesting place to share some information, and I'd love to get people's feedback on what we've done so far and what we could do to maybe improve it. And I'll see you there. And thanks to the Debian team for the continued hard effort. It really is, unsung to some degree because there are so many derivatives and everything, but honestly, the work they do has for years and will continue for a very long time to be one of the bedrocks of the Linux community.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well said.
Agreed. Dolphin.
EB's looking at a Russian distribution. Zeb's installing a Argent Gen 2. And Burger King's got tacos. The world is upside down. Grab yourself some sanity. Check out the Antics 19 Beta 2. It just hit Distro Watch about 20 minutes ago. So check out the beta. Get us some testing done. Get your non-system D on. And, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. I'm totally sunburned, and I almost died today at the lake. So seriously, I'm lucky to be here at all.
And those are the last words that this channel needed.
JJ, last word.
Thanks, Rocco, for the show. Thanks for all of us. Thanks for you guys to show up today. And also want to push that if you want a discussion post-show, go ahead and head to the Discord, BigDaddyLinux.com/Discord as well. And ditto on Eric's comments on Debian. I may also have a distro suggestion, but I want to put it through the ringer just in case. Just want to get that approved at some point. So
Yeah, we're not doing Windows 10. Forget it.
Yep.
Definitely not that. No. Definitely not BSD either.
I hear they have a great Zoom client, though. Come on, Zoom, step it up.
Yeah, Zoom, get with the program. Get the Linux version of Zoom on par with the Windows version. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us. We are going to try Bodhi Linux. Check out the forums like we have said 100 times, but definitely check them out. Thank you to the Debian team for all of the hard work that you guys do. Everybody here who tried it will agree that it is a good system. Whether or not it's for them is another whole story. But thank you all for the effort. And until next time, long live Linux.
Later.
Later, everybody.
Adios. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Everyone will prosper.